The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, on Friday, we got a data dump from USDA. Also, it's been quite a week in the livestock trade. How did we fare in cattle and hogs on Friday as we headed into the weekend? Let's talk about it. Joining us now, Scott Varlick with Coiba Varlick out of Sioux Center, Iowa. Scott, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
What a week it has been here, capped off with, of course, the USDA grain reports and export sales data and more. And, we can get to that in a minute, but let's start with this livestock trade. I mean, you had a limit up day Monday, consolidation, down days in futures. Here we are, kind of mixed to higher to end the week. I mean, just what can you say, Scott? More volatility in the cattle complex.
Yeah, what a week. Like you said, that's an understatement, really, for what the cattle go through. I mean, it feels like a long time ago we had a limit up day during this week, and you almost forget about it. But it's been kind of a bloodbath on the other side, and just it's good to finish it just a little bit mixed because, we got a Friday where we're sitting here around steady with about a $11, $12 trading range on feeders again, and have traded both sides real hard. I mean, big down to start the day and then kind of crawled back to higher, now back to steady. So there's just a lot of uncertainty wrapped up in this market. Several things. Number one, we've got Secretary Rollins, working with Mexico. We don't have a date. We don't know how many he had, or we're just going to open it up full bore. Just nobody knows any answers there yet. There's no specifics. So we have to trade it that way. We just know it's going to open, so being prepared for that, we're penciling some of that into the market. Your other thing, we've got the tariff talks. Are we going to import beef? Or are we not? A lot of questions on that. I mean, beef wasn't specifically listed on what they're working with Brazil, but we know that, Trump wants beef prices lower, and that's one way to fix that. So I guess as of now, we've just got some Argentina beef coming in and not on the Brazil yet. And then the other is just the cash market. That's feeling a little bit sloppier. The South did okay with some 228, but the North has been a little bit of a different story just with the time of year that we sit. We've got a lot of cattle ready up here in the North, and we've got them weighing more than they've ever weighed before. Feeders are high, so let's just keep feeding what we got. And packers have been doing an inventory grab, bids for 3 weeks out here. Let's and we're taking it. So I think the packers have a lot of cattle bought through the end of the month. They're coming in with limited orders, and we've got a lot more guys that want to sell cattle. Started at 226, drifted down $1 every hour that went by, and now today we're trying to get 222. And seems a little bit quieter. So a lot of cleanup that has to happen just there yet.
I wonder as well, we're coming into calving season time, and just thinking about the overall supply picture in the market here, and, the lowest inventory in 60 years, whatever the number is, I lose track. Could this be maybe the most consequential calving season for the cattle industry as a whole coming up here over the next several months, Scott, and for the markets as well?
Yeah, I just think that overall supply, like you say, it is tight, and it's going to be tight. We can't rebuild this cow herd quickly. It takes years to rebuild the herd. Now we are starting to see this heifer retention. So we think it's happening. It's always unsure how hard it's going. Consequential. Yeah. I don't know if we can use that word quite like we can in the hog industry, where they can turn real fast. But what can happen is we get a market that breaks like this, and you get some guys that were planning on selling some calves in sale barn, and suddenly, I used to, they're $500 a head less. Maybe I'm not going to sell them and keep a few. So maybe a little bit of forced heifer retention that way. Plus, you've got income issues. If you're a cattle feeder, you might not want to sell some and hold some back. So a lot of things wrapped up in that. So I think it's building this cow herd, but I think it's really slow. I really don't think we can say, hey, we talk about those numbers. back since 1960 or whatever the year is, but we're not going to get back to some of these very large cow herd sizes, in my opinion. The industry has turned to other venues, aka the dairy industry. That's one place that this market has shifted to, confinement cattle, and the dairy industry figured out, hey, we can get a $1,400 calf a year from day one. Oh, they're going to turn that crank pretty hard and do that. And using increased technology, we can sex this semen. We can make sure we're going to have a bull calf, something that the market actually wants, rather than less than $100 for a Holstein calf, something they didn't care about. We lived in a time to where they were worth $0. Nobody even wanted them. So I think that's kind of the change in our overall supply. It's not going to be able to just ramp up real quick out there in the country and get a bunch of cowboys back out there again. So it's going to be slow.
Hog trade, any notes for you there this week? Ended the week with a little bit of green on the screen. I know that this hog market has been one that's been a head scratcher, I think, to some degree. We got, PRRS and disease issues out there to keep in mind too. I mean, thoughts for you and the hogs here this week?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a head fake this week. They had the steady downtrend that they were following, and it was kind of it's a market, don't change course until it breaks a trend line. Well, then it did. Popped its head up, and it was very short-lived, and then was followed by down again. It's like, okay, nothing's changed. And I think a lot of that's just tied to the seasonalities of the market. Sitting here in the end of November, and we've got, in hog country, the barns are full. We don't have a supply problem right now like we had earlier, where numbers were tight. Isoines were hard to find. It was scrambling. We haven't heard that near as much. They're out there. They're available. I wondered if maybe some Canada trade deals would slow some numbers down, but I think we're sitting on a big supply now, and it's just too early for it to try to find a bottom and bounce out of here. So yeah, it's cash cutout, still a little bit of a struggle here, so not ready to go. The PRRS, the disease, that's what we're always going to want to watch and keep an eye on. That's going to be a next spring, summer kind of story. If those prices get low enough, I think you'll find funds to want to buy them. I just don't see much happening for decent Feb. So they're going to be the one we need to get in through December before we can start to look ahead, in my opinion. So sluggish for a while here yet.
Scott, let's go over to the grains before we close out our conversation here this week. Obviously, USDA's big data dump on Friday. Everyone was, excited that, hey, we're going to get some fresh data for this market. Maybe not as excited after things settled out. I mean, a lot of pressure across the grains and oilseeds to close out this session on Friday. Some saying USDA maybe played it a little safe with the November WASDE. I mean, what's your thoughts as you kind of assess all of this data that's hit the market?
Yeah, I think it's a day we've been waiting for, just to get some news. You get some of these cash sales, you get a USDA report. So the market, in anticipation of all this, has had a pretty big run. So I think there was that risk there that if you put some some growth on the corn and the soybeans, maybe there's that buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of feel to it. I think you would have needed to see some pretty friendly numbers if we're going to continue some of these trends. So, looking at the report, corn first, that yield is a lot higher than everybody expected. 2.1 billion bushel ending stock number. For me, that's a big hurdle. That's a number that you're not going to be able to just chew through real fast, and it's going to put the brakes on in the corn market, I think, pretty fast. I mean, what news would you need to pop that thing up to $5 and higher? If we're at 2.1 million bushels, I think that's tough sledding. So I think the corn looks at that and says, okay, I guess we don't get to go anywhere real far, real fast. And beans, they need more sales. I mean, need to see more proof of this deal happening. We need to catch more of that action if we're going to put this back on. So it was kind of, they're more the buy the rumor, sell the fact. The numbers on the report, really weren't anything too crazy. I mean, in line with estimates, maybe a touch friendly on the beans, but funds were long, took it as an opportunity, I think, to just kind of cash some of that in here now that we're getting some of this news in front of us.
Yeah, and the China news for the daily export sales, flash sales that came out, USDA release, same time as the WASDE, is only about 332,000 tons. That was China specific on catching up on those sales. So, to your point, we're going to see more confirmation of things. Final thoughts from you, Scott? Anything else you would add, reiterate to folks here on the show today?
Yeah, wild times we're in. We've got a stock market getting a little goofy here, trying to, make some all-time highs and then breaks. What everybody wants to know, what kind of effect does that have on the markets? Like cattle in particular. And for me, it's not like they've done any significant damage on these charts. Just a little bit of a correction. We're near record highs, so that I'm kind of putting behind me yet. I'm not worried about it yet unless we start to see further correction. Then we can start to talk about it. But I don't think they're playing as big of a factor in our ag markets as some people think.
Scott, if folks want to reach out, have a conversation with you guys there at KKV Trading, what's the best way?
Yeah, give us a call. We'd love to just talk to you. I've got 4 brokers here ready to talk. So 712-722-0023.
Scott Varlick, Quima Varlick at Sioux Center, Iowa. Thanks for joining us again here on Market Talk. Have a great one. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jesse.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.